Welcome back to the Hot Healed Girl podcast. We are talking about more emotions today because
We
we
heard
love
you guys wanted
emotions over
more.
here.
We heard the consensus was the people wanted more.
I think that actually is one of our most listened to podcasts so far is the one you did with Amanda on
Yeah,
MBSR. It's the
that
most
one.
popular one.
And I think Drainage 101 did really well
Yeah.
too.
Drainage and MBSR.
Yeah.
Maybe we
And the
can
Christina
have,
one's up there too, which makes
yeah.
sense. She was talking about the emotional healing in her journey.
hmm
I know.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
We should probably have Amanda on for part two because I
I
think the people would
was I
love
was
that.
thinking that
Yeah.
yesterday. I was like, we should see if she wants to be on for part two, and maybe this time I can join.
I know, right? You can actually meet her.
Yeah.
I literally was just on a call with her to get like my recertification like last week or the week before. And she did say it was so fun to be on this pod. She's like, we talked recently, and I feel like we just did because it was like a whole hour, right? We went through everything, and I'm like, hopefully she'll come back on because she had a great time. She got a lot of positive feedback. We got a lot of positive feedback. We'll reach out. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, where do you want
But
to start with this?
um, well, basically we're talking about how emotions are connected to your different organ functions and like I don't want to say diseases because I don't like the word disease. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's so negative, but just like I guess health concerns connected to that organ. So
Yeah.
like your thyroid function or your digestion or your small intestines and how like these
Yeah.
different emotions that you hold on to are tied to issues there.
And also, if you're interested at all in this topic, and like obviously this is just going to be a sliver, this is going to be like an hour or less. The book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, she has a whole index in the back, and it's obviously not as in depth as like what we would tell you, but she goes over lots of different functions, lots of different like disorder, diseases, sort of things, and like possible emotional attachments to them.
Yeah, she's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you just like want to kind of self-diagnose yourself,
Exactly. Yeah.
like what you do and what I do, I mean, we base it all off of like your intake forms and all
Mm-hmm.
of your symptoms. So it like really gets down to pinpointing
Yeah.
everything because it's super in depth. So it's really easy to, like pick apart which organ is struggling because of what emotion. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're just gonna kind
100%.
of cover some of the more common ones today, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, and I know your schooling taught you so much. And for me, most of my education was either self-education or MBSR. Like my traditional, like, I guess physical healing stuff didn't teach me that, but MBSR teaches you a bunch. So where
hmm
do you want to, which organ, gland, tissue,
Thyroid is my
disorder?
favorite because thyroid always comes up with people that I work with.
It's a big
And
thing for hormones. That makes complete sense.
yeah, and especially for emotions because yeah, thyroid is just and I like you did the little MBSR thing on me yesterday and I was like,
Yeah, I
no
did.
surprise,
Yeah, your
thyroid came
thyroid
up there. Like,
resonated.
no surprise.
I did a
I
mini
was
clearing for Emily because the powers that be were telling me to. So I I sent you a little picture of like everything that resonated. I just did like a mini one that's like a 10-minute clearing, obviously, because I'm like, yeah, it takes a bunch of time. And thyroid resonated, and I forget what the other organ was. There were only two organs and then a couple
lungs.
of thyroid and lungs. So yeah, go over the emotions that are tied to the thyroid typically.
So thyroid, let me see here. I'm gonna start with the hypothyroid function. And the motions are very similar, but they're a little bit different. But like hypothyroid is like what I used to lean towards was hypothyroid
Mm-hmm.
symptoms. And I find that that one's the most common across the board. But your thyroid is associated with humiliation and thoughts of like never getting to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will ask themselves, like, when will it be my turn? Or, like this can also indicate like past experiences with these feelings surrounding trauma. Um, those imbalances can be associated with like emotional upsets caused by like breaking off of friendships or family relations or depression, suspicion, anxiety, and then just like poor elimination of harmful thoughts. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a
Yeah,
big
it's like being
thing.
like choked up.
Yeah. not being able to speak your thoughts essentially. So they're like getting stuck here in your throat.
Yeah.
Like you have what you want to say, but you feel suppressed. Like you feel like you can't say what you want to.
Mhm. Or
Or
sometimes it's not being heard, even
yeah.
though you like vocalized it. It's that no one's hearing you, no one's listening.
Mm-hmm. Or just like the way you're interpreting it is you
Exactly.
feel like they're not listening to
Hmm.
you. So yeah, those are the biggest emotions tied to thyroid. And like I said, everyone that I work with that has all of those symptoms, when I bring up like those things being tied to it, every single one of them is like, oh, yeah, yeah, I do feel like that. Like
Uh-huh.
when I was little, I felt like I couldn't stay stuff. Or like now in one of my relationships, I feel like I'm not heard or
Hmm.
can't talk about things. And I do feel like with hypothyroid that it does seem to be more connected to like how you felt as a child because hypothyroid is basically autoimmune
Hmm.
almost. And so, it's like developed over time. But even if you just have a thyroid imbalance, like even if you're not hypothyroid, you
Hmm.
still do tend to be very tied to those emotions.
Yeah, I also have, like you said, humiliated, silenced. I have choked up, repressed, which is like
Mm-hmm.
all, these are literally the same. Lack of self-expression and depleted. And for those of you that don't know what hypothyroid, it's when the thyroid is underactive. Like
Yeah.
it's not creating enough
Mm-hmm.
thyroid hormones for the body to thrive.
Yeah. And if you have Hashimoto's, that's what that is also.
Yeah, because then there's hyper on the other stamp, on the other, flip side, which is
Mm-hmm.
overactive.
Yeah.
It's like run really fast. I mean, hyper is like the easiest one to remember because like it's hyper, it's going fast.
Yeah.
I know.
Hypo does seem to be the most common though.
Yeah, it's funny because my mom had Graves. She had her thyroid taken out once upon actually before she had me, before she got pregnant with me, which things threw that's how she ended up pregnant because threw off a lot of things in her body. I was not planned, in case you were wondering this about me. Um, but she had Graves and she's like, everyone talks about everyone talks about Hashimoto's, but like Graves, which is hyper, no one talks about it. It's like
Mm,
the opposite. It's not as common, which I
yeah.
totally agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think indecisive comes into indecisive and depleted, which is so interesting because I think they all are just tied into that self expression and that like not feeling like you can properly express yourself, usually vocally, right? Throat
Yeah.
chakra energy.
Yeah. And it also, like a note here in my stuff is like, it says glands have the meaning of a door, shield, or forest. So thyroid disturbance is usually associated with some issue regarding going through a door in life or making the decision of moving through one phase of life to another.
How interesting. Do you have anything more on hypo? Do you want to go to hyper or are they mostly one and the same?
They're a little bit different, I think. I mean, like basically the emotions are
Yeah. Yeah.
very
The emotions are similar.
similar. It does say for hyper, it says this can be associated with like extreme disappointment in not being able to do what you want because you feel like you're always fulfilling everybody else's needs and not your own. And also the thyroid is associated with humiliation. So, if
Yeah.
you're constantly feeling that, um, yeah, an individual may feel as though she may lose a loved person or object and tries to prevent such a loss by holding on or possessiveness.
Yeah, I know. It's so interesting.
Hmm.
All these emotions tied. I know. And if you're someone, and it's interesting, well, what I've seen in my practice is it's more women than men that deal with thyroid issues, right? Men can have picture perfect thyroid hormones. And I'm like, how? How is that whole thyroid panel perfect? And then women, I find that I most women in my practice, I haven't seen almost any with like perfect thyroid hormones. Like so, they're just tending towards one or the other. Usually it's just like needing of a nutrient or it's a downstream impact of like all that's going on in their body. But it makes a lot of sense given what we know, like the nurturers and
Hmm. Yeah, you want to,
always having to be good and
yep,
like,
yep.
but I'm like,
You're
yeah,
trying to always, like it said, you're always trying to fulfill everybody else's needs, especially if you're a mom or a wife.
exactly.
So,
So check yourself. do things for you. And this, we were talking about the end of last podcast, a lot about the feminine and the masculine, which is going to be a whole other podcast because we decided that it just needs to be. Yeah. So like lean more into that feminine side, the masculine's the doing for everyone. Lean into the feminine, lean into the receiving, lean into the like accepting, the flowiness, whatever feels flowy, abundant, good for you. Doesn't mean you have to be completely selfless and never or selfish and do everything for everyone else all the time. That means like add in the selfishness, add in the
Mm-hmm.
moments, add in that self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah, women have such a hard time with being selfish. And like, I
I
get it.
know.
I also feel the same. But yeah, just
Nope.
for your own personal health, it is very important.
Okay, so what did we say we are going to move on to next? Thyroid and oh, what was the other one you had blocked? Lungs. Let's go to lungs. So what I
You
have
have
for
lungs
lungs
in
in
yours.
terms of just emotions, yeah. Grief, sadness, invalidated, smothered, suffocated, isolated, unworthiness, and intolerant. I mostly see it with grief and sadness. It's like people aren't able to get rid of some sort of grief that they have. Maybe it's a loss, maybe it's something being pulled away. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, all of that hits for me.
I don't know, man. Just telling you what came up. Because usually, like when she had the block to like the thyroid or the lungs, like the way I do it, there totally can be a physical block there. That could be what it's telling me, but 9 times out of 10, it's an emotional block. It's
Mm-hmm.
that you are emotionally blocked from that thing doing 100% of its job. It's the emotions that are tied to that organ, not necessarily the organ in and of itself.
Yeah, I think especially with lungs, I feel like, yeah,
Okay.
very big. I don't know if I have a section for lungs,
That's okay.
actually.
What do you want to go to after that? We just briefly touched upon it. I don't see too many people with a lot of lung issues. So, but when they do, it's typically a grief thing. It's like a holding on. Aren't all of these holding on?
Yes. Do we want to do adrenals? Because I know everyone has adrenal issues,
Adrenal fatigue. Okay, we can do adrenals.
which is actually mitochondrial fatigue,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
you know,
it
everybody
really
calls
is.
it adrenal fatigue.
I know. I'm not even gonna. I don't even talk about the adrenals. I'm always like, nope, not the adrenals. Sorry.
But, you know, I feel like people can relate to it because they know the word and they
Yeah.
know the symptoms, you know.
Yeah.
So basically, the adrenals are the strength center of the body. So again, going back to your mitochondria is your energy producer. So it is your strength center. That's what your adrenals are. So it mine says like they're here to cheer you on and give you energy to keep on keeping on, helping you to tackle stressful situations. Unfortunately, they become exhausted and simply cannot take care of anything, just like people. Adrenals are associated with a false sense of responsibility, similar to how humans feel they have to do it all alone. Relationships and community can greatly alleviate this feeling.
Mm.
So, adrenals react heavily to past trauma as well as emotions such as fear or hate. The struggle for success can cause adrenals to release reserves of stress hormones, draining nutrients like B vitamins and magnesium, and often affecting the lower back.
Which is funny that you say affecting the lower back because what's also tied to fear, kidneys. And the
Yeah.
kidneys are, if you didn't know this, they're in your lower back.
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening to you talk and I was like, adrenals and the kidneys tied hand in hand, right? We
Yeah.
know. But the kidneys are tied to fear, fright, powerlessness, deep exhaustion, dread, and being insecure. It is a lot of the times fear and worry. Like when people are dealing with fear and worry, like that at a really deep level, like they can't shake it ever, no matter what they do, no matter how much nervous system support they're doing. A lot of the times there's things blocking it in their kidneys.
Mm-hmm. I'm honestly surprised that kidneys didn't come up for me when you did the MBSR because that is where I will notice just like pain sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
just like unexplainable pain, and it literally feels like my kidneys hurting. But I can connect it to like you said,
The
either
fear
being
and worry.
fearful or worrying about something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's big with fear and worry. I things also happen in, especially with MBSR, things get cleared in phases, right? Like if your body at a surface level just needed the thyroid and the lungs right now because it's like that's what's like most a need.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once we clear that, the fear and the worry is at a deeper level and a deeper level. It's like anything. Like you get into deeper levels the more you do it.
Yeah, I probably should do some more sessions with you.
Yeah. Cause I always tell people that when they're like, oh my God, I'm surprised that didn't come up. And I'm like, especially when they're like main symptoms, a lot of the times won't come up in the first session. Like I had a client that was dealing with a bunch of hormonal dysregulation. And that was like, again, a downstream impact, but it didn't take till like the second or third session for like the hormones to come up and the testosterone and those sorts of things. And I was like, yeah, because your body wasn't ready to address it. We needed to get out all this surface level junk first.
Mm-hmm.
But okay. Kidneys are fear, and so is oh crud. Isn't it the nope, the spleen. The spleen's worry. Do you
Mm-hmm.
have anything on the kidneys or the spleen?
I do have kidneys, I think.
Yeah. So kidneys are fear and worry. I was just like connecting them. That this is the stream that I was going with, right? Like fear and worry to then just worry.
Mm-hmm.
I also have like less than yours is different than mine. Mine's more just like emotions. Yours is like root causes tied to.
Yeah, I mean, mine has like a whole
I'll say
list
you
of
have some nice little
possible
anecdotes too.
possible root causes. So yeah, here's kidneys. Kidney problems are associated with indecision. They represent criticism, disappointment, failure, shame, or reacting like a child. Inflammation can be associated with fear, inflamed thinking, seeing red, anger, and frustration about conditions in one's life.
Mm.
The kidneys represent the realm of partnership, and symptoms may appear when we are engaged in conflicts without partners, not just sexually, but in the fundamental way we approach other people. The encounter with a partner is an encounter with the unknown aspect of our psyche, where we are attracted to that which we feel lack in ourselves.
A lot of the times the kidneys are tied to the prostate, obviously in men, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
has to do with a lack of feeling masculine as well. And the kidneys are a drainage pathway too. So when you think about that fear, that fright, that powerlessness, that anything else, it's impacting your ability to get rid of toxins, being so afraid. And I know it's
Mm-hmm.
always easier said than done because fear feels so logical. Like it feels so logical because your subconscious mind is trying to protect you from whatever was once a threat or what you're perceiving to be a threat in your mind. And it could be a totally valid threat, but that doesn't mean that reliving it twice is going to help you. Like you think, okay, being afraid of it is helping me prepare so that I can make it not happen. And sometimes that is real, but a lot of the times, like, we can't stop what's coming, which everyone hates to hear. Like, the fear just makes you live something twice. And I was someone who I'll talk about it. I had a loved one who was in a really, really stressful health situation. I was in a lot of fear. Like, there was a lot of fear in me around how was it going to happen? How could we prevent it from happening again? Blah, 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 blah. But like that literally didn't help my life at all. I'm not even
Mm-hmm.
going to lie to you. As someone who we're on mostly the other side of it, we're still working through it. But it, the fear did not benefit me in any way. And I had all these tools and I was working on my nervous system. So like, I get it. I wasn't a hypocrite. I was doing my best with what I had. But on the other side, like if you can alleviate the fear in any way, try.
Like you said, it really is easier said than done because I think
Oh yeah,
everybody deals with fear over something at,
there's
you
so many
know,
things.
some point or another, or like even just a recurring fear of like, I know some people who are fearful every time they drive or, whatever, but it, like you said, it doesn't change anything. And honestly, I think it makes it worse sometimes
Yeah, it
because if
does.
you're out there with that like fear mentality of, oh, I'm gonna run into somebody
We
or like
manifest our reality.
somebody's gonna run into me, you
Mhm.
know, it's just you're always in that heightened state of
Exactly. Like I thought I
anxiety.
was preventing my loved one from having, well, I knew I wasn't, but like the fear was happening. Like I thought I was preventing it from happening again, like a big flare, something scary, a really tragic event. But
Mm-hmm.
all I was doing was putting myself in a literal state of fear and worry 24/7, which didn't help anyone because, yeah, I was hyper vigilant, but like if it was going to happen, it was going to happen. I wasn't going to be able to stop the train on the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I was just aware it was happening versus it being a surprise before. It was literally helping no one. And I was manifesting it more times than I wasn't because my energy was projecting onto them. And I would be like, are you like concerned about me? And they were like, oh my God, yeah, I'm concerned about you because you're so afraid all the time that like I want to do my best to like not do this. And I was causing fear in them
Mm-hmm.
because they were literally holding on to my fear. I was like, God damn it. This is my fault. This is my fault. I'm the one holding on to fear. And like I'm projecting it onto you. I'm projecting all of this like hypervigilance.
Mm-hmm.
And I did lots of sessions and RRTs and a bunch of stuff. And I'm going to say it definitely helped a lot. Like I did, clearings and like, cause I have all these tools at my disposal that helped somewhat. But like, also one thing about fear is just looking fear in the face and overcoming it if you can, if it's something like driving, like exposing your nervous system to something over and over and over and proving to your nervous system that it's not a threat. I was doing a lot of meditations where I was like, what's once a threat is not a threat. It doesn't exist. It no longer exists. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Like telling myself that 70 billion times actually sunk in. So that was a tangent, but it was valid.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I was saying spleen. Do you have anything on the spleen?
No, I don't have anything on the spleen. Bladder, it has kidney and bladder together, but not the spleen.
What I have on the spleen is the worry, inadequacy, lack of boundaries. Woohoo! I know a lot of people are going to maybe not resonate with that, but you should. Obsessed, negativity, impatient, and ruminating.
I feel like the spleen is very underrated. Like
Oh
it
my gosh, yeah.
should be taken care of more and like
No
thought
one talks
of
about
more,
spleen.
brought up more.
No one talks about spleen.
No,
Why? Why are we neglecting the spleen?
you really shouldn't. I mean, I didn't know much about it until like a year ago when all these like different symptoms started coming up, like even for me, but also for clients. And then it's just like you start researching it
Yeah.
and almost everything was tied to the spleen. And I'm like, why isn't this in anything? Like,
Oh
why
no, I
isn't this
fully,
in health programs or why,
yeah.
why does nobody talk about this?
Looking back, do you think any of it was tied to worry, lack of boundaries, negativity,
100%.
impatience, inadequacy?
I wouldn't say impatience, but
Okay.
definitely
The other
worry,
ones.
inadequacy. Yeah. Those two, I think, were the big ones for me.
And I agree. I guess because we like obviously didn't go to medical school, like there's so many different organs, glands, things that we like don't learn about.
Hmm.
And I think about that all the time too, because I'm like the pancreas too. I feel like no one touched upon the pancreas, or at least not for us. I'm like, I learned so much about it. I forget why, but I was like, dang, I should pretty much get a medical school education at this point because of all the research I've done on the spleen, the pancreas, and all these things that no one's teaching us about, but not obviously.
Hmm.
I know, not actually. Don't worry. I'm not taking anything away from those who go to med school. It's a lot. So then with I was saying obsessed. What I see coming up the most for obsessed is the lymph. The lymph emotionally is tied to being stuck, obsessed, uncentered, and sluggish. It's like a ruminating and overthinking type of thing. And I find that so many people that have like lymph stagnancy or Lyme, which is tied to lymph stagnancy, there is an obsessed, overthinking, ruminating energy about them. And
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people think that, right? Like if you obsess over your symptoms, if you micromanage them, if you're like, like you're always going to get it right, that you think that the only way to heal is to that hypervigilance, that obsession, but like it's actually blocking you because the lymph wants to flow. It's flowy in nature.
Hmm. That's literally its design is to
Yeah.
move through your body,
A
move things
couple
out.
a couple other emotions are hanging on or not letting go, lack of focus. Like I said, feeling stuck, unable to move forward, control, out of control, lack of control, fear of rejection. So, limiting belief that comes in with a lot of this is I'm afraid to succeed or fail. You're afraid to succeed or fail. So, you're just stuck.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like that fear is sitting in. Like we said, lymph wants to flow. Let it go, baby.
Yep.
I mean, all these things are easier said than done, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all of this stuff is easier to do, but that's why that emotional or other work is so important. Do you have anything on the lymph?
No.
I love the lymph so much.
Me too. Again, I think it's one of those things that, again, it's just not taught about enough. Like you have to do
Your homework.
basically your own research on it. Thankfully, like the lymph was always something I was aware about because of my
So
mom,
fun.
because she was like always supporting her lymph and
With her
always
fascia
on,
person she
yeah,
went to.
always on the rebounder. Like every morning she was, because I was homeschooled, and so obviously teacher was mom. But like every morning she would get me started on, I had math. Math was always my first subject. And so she would get me started on my math, and then she would be like in her office rebounding for like 10
Ah,
minutes.
I love that.
That was like our morning schedule.
If you want to learn a lot about the lymph, the Book of Lymph is phenomenal. It is such
Yeah.
a good book. You're not going to read it cover to cover because there's so much information about it, but like you have it in front of you. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
phenomenal resource.
If you're watching on YouTube, this is
Yeah.
it by Lisa
It's
Levitt
pretty.
Gainsley. Yeah, it is a pretty
I
book.
love it. Yeah. I think it's so pretty.
If you want an aesthetic book for your shelves, this is it.
And it's so informative about the
Mm-hmm.
lymph.
Yeah, and she
Um,
has a lot of just like self-care practices in there, or like
I love that.
massages.
She has so many massages.
It's funny because that's like the one thing that Reed will ask me for. He's like, "Can you do that like tummy thing, or can you like?" He calls it petting his head. Can you just like pet my head? Because it just like
Yeah. Yeah. She has a lot
relaxes
for
him.
like different like ailments, whatever, like earaches, throat aches, those sorts of things, like swollen lymph nodes on your neck, because some people get that when you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
She has like lots of different massages for different things like that. And like constipation, whatever, like the stomach lymphatic massage is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you want to go to next?
I was thinking maybe liver and gallbladder because I know
Oh,
a lot of
love
people have
liver and
those.
gallbladder. Love the liver and gallbladder. Okay, I'll start off some emotions, I guess. Anger, rage, resentment, destructive, feeling forced, lack of expression, inflexible, inefficiency, toxic, depressed, critical, dissatisfied, unforgiveness, bitterness, pride, blaming, and self pity. And the limiting belief tied to that is it is beyond my control.
Mm-hmm.
You got, tell me, let us soak it in.
So I have like two sections. There's liver and gallbladder, like symptoms associated with insufficient bile, and then I have another
Mm.
one like liver and gallbladder symptoms associated with toxin overload.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the insufficient bile obviously is more tied towards the gallbladder, but it says gallbladder is tied to emotions reflecting inspiration, passion, and assertiveness. Gallbladder concerns could indicate inability to make decisions or take action. The gallbladder receives bile from the liver, which is associated with anger. This anger can be from fear, pain, or past traumatic events. The gallbladder is where bile is stored until ready for release. It's
Mm-hmm.
much like aggression, stored until it's ready for release. With gallbladder
Oh,
issues, there is something keeping the aggression and all other feelings stemming from that aggression from being released. This is a conflict that can be overcome by reconnecting to yourself, others who support you in your conviction, and your environment, including a connection or relationship with a higher power.
you know, it's funny you say that because I didn't even think of the gallbladder like that, right? Because we knew liver was anger. A lot of people know that, and I work with a lot of liver clients.
Mm-hmm.
But like the storing ready for release, I
Yeah,
love
because that's what
that.
it does. It releases the bile.
But it makes
But
so
when
much sense.
yeah, when you're not flowing it properly, you're holding that in there.
Oh,
And yeah.
wow. I mean, like I said, it makes so much sense. Like
Uh-huh.
knowing obviously what I do about anger. But okay. Now get to the toxin overload. So mostly the liver part.
Yeah. So this is, yeah, again, more tied to the liver, but like
Yeah.
toxin burden overload. Um, Obviously, the liver is associated with anger. We
Yeah.
mentioned this in multiple podcasts.
Yeah.
This anger can be from fear, pain, past traumatic events. Resolving this anger can contribute to liver health, obviously. Depression and high stress levels are linked to liver disease as well. Anxiety has also been linked in various studies to liver dysfunction. Depression and anxiety can be emotionally toxic, contributing to the overall toxicity level of the body. Liver damage due to alcohol can sometimes be traced back to traumatic events where alcohol is being used as a coping mechanism.
Mm.
Liver conditions can often spiritually be associated with a resistance to change, as well as the act of projecting your disapproval of yourself onto others.
Hmm.
This results in chronic fault finding. Rather than change the self and experience that transformation and the pain that can come with it, we attempt to change others instead. So, shifting to a place of reconnection with the self, the true worth of the self, its purpose, and its mission can be extremely helpful. In addition, connecting to community and the environment can be supportive in transforming what you see in the mirror to something more positive and in alignment with your spiritual self.
On the liver and gallbladder, when I have people cleanse parasites, not always, this will happen with some people though, like they'll get angry and they'll be like, what is going on? I'm like, well, if there's something blocking your liver, right? Like if it's the pushing of the bile, or if it's like liver flukes, like the anger's got to come out. Like it,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be like, oh my God, I literally had, like, they don't say roid rage. I think of it as roid rage, but I'm like, they're like, why am I just so angry all the time? Like, I'm snapping at everyone. And I'm like, you got to get it out. Like, don't hold it in. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying yell at everyone, but like, let yourself move through those emotions. And if your way of coping with that anger is like yelling, screaming, going to a break that room, going on a run, going on a walk, talking it out at therapy, right? There's lots of different ways to move through emotions. I always like listen about the liver stuff and I'm like, because I got sick at like a 7-year-old and like that doesn't hit for me, these emotions,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure they were there or some iteration of them.
Or maybe it was something that, was passed down from your mom, like
My
in the
mom's
womb.
convinced it was those around me because I was like, a very empathetic little child. I mean, most children are. She's convinced that like I was feeling the energy of my parents who were like struggling at the time because they had 3 smaller children and like my
Mm-hmm.
siblings were really, really difficult. And my brother like hated everything. So they were always trying to keep him happy. And she's like convinced that like I felt the strain in their marriage and I felt the anger and the frustration. And so like I got sick.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Yeah.
like very convinced, which makes sense, right? Because like I said, I don't feel like I was an angry child
Yeah.
or like holding on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not gonna say that there weren't emotions, but like I don't. But because she's like
Maybe there
we.
was like sibling emotions, like they felt angry at you for being there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, my brother definitely didn't like me because I was the youngest. My parents did almost divorce like in that time frame. Like they were not doing great. And she's like, I'm just convinced like you took on all of our emotions because you felt them. And then like
Mm-hmm.
it was a blessing in disguise because, they stayed together, helped me through it, and they got through it.
Yeah.
It all worked
Yeah.
out. I guess this is probably a little bit of TMI. Sorry, parents, if you don't want me to tell people this, but oops. So I think we should move on to the digestive organs. There are so many of them. Do you have them broken down or do you just have like digestion as a whole? Because I have, you know, the large intestines, the small intestines, and the stomach all
Yeah, I have
separate.
the colon, um, just intestinal support,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
stomach
there's a lot.
support. Yeah,
Okay,
I have the
so
stomach,
I
intestines, and colon.
so I have here the emotions for supporting your drainage funnel in terms of intestinal health, disappointment, holding on to, which for most people, I see it's holding on to or hanging on to. Frantic or anxious, feeling unneeded and limiting beliefs there. I'm afraid to see the truth or I lack trust in the process. And then if we're looking at like the stomach, disgust, anxiety, too high of demands, not able to process. So that's that lack of and holding on to and disappointment. And then I'll just do the small intestine and we'll get to large intestine after. Small intestine, lonely, abandoned, guilt, self-doubt, and unvalued. So then I don't know where you want to start because you said like 7 different things.
No, I had stomach, intestines, and colon.
Okay, perfect.
So we'll do intestines. So it
Yeah.
says when we become overwhelmed by stress, family obligations, work, or any other factors, our ability to digest all of this can become impaired. In addition, trauma at any time in our lives can have a large impact on our microbiota. People who have experienced past trauma learn to ignore their gut feelings because they feel unsafe in their own body. When you experience fight or flight on a normal basis, this forces your body into an inflammatory and immune depressed state. This may cause a permeable gut and increase susceptibility to bacteria, yeast, and pathogens. Intestinal concerns can often reflect a feeling of insecurity or disconnection with the world, including the self. This can lead to holding on to relationships, careers, or roles that no longer serve just to ensure that connection.
Mm. Yeah, that lack of being able to digest emotions is so real. And I know we talked about it on, I think it was the last podcast, it might have been 2 ago. Like, obviously, I work with a lot of people with gut issues. And like, when I have people who have been through abuse,
Mm-hmm.
they almost always have gut issues.
Yep.
Like, that cycle, like you were literally just hitting the nail on the head with that. Like, they don't trust their gut instincts. They hold on to things, like all of that. And it's just, it very much impacts the gut. And part of that is literally like almost every single person that I know with some sort of like IBD, Crohn's, colitis, whatever, like they dealt with something traumatic in their life. Not everyone, not 100%, but almost everyone I know with one of those diagnoses, like there's something traumatic. And it is so easy to just talk about all the like symptoms and the foods and the diets, but like truly the only people that I've seen put that into remission are the people that do the deep emotional work.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say it can't get better and your symptoms can't get better without doing it, but like to truly put it into remission and to truly like put it behind you where you're like not having those symptoms all the time, it's putting all that emotional work and working through things and forgiving and moving forward and all of that stuff. And that takes time, years, right? We're not going to lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
I also have the large intestines as perfectionistic, uptight, anxiety, controlling, insecurity, not letting go, not following through, unworthy, and procrastination. Okay, so let's go to one more of yours. You had
We'll do stomach. So it
okay.
says often indigestion is experienced and may be associated with gut level fear, dread, anxiety, griping, and complaining. It may also suggest prolonged uncertainty or a feeling of doom. People with stomach problems often lack the capacity to consciously cope with or even identify what is bothering them or their own aggressive urges. They either do not express their aggression at all, aka they get eaten up inside, or show exaggerated aggression. People with stomach issues must recognize that the ability to overcome their digestive issues lies in the bounty of nature. Encourage them to eat organic, humanely raised foods. They may be surprised to learn that they can gain a greater sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in life simply by eating clean, whole, colorful foods. As a positive byproduct, this will foster a sense of unity with nature, part of environmental spirituality.
I love that. It's interesting just the differences between like different parts of, the digestive tract because the whole GI tract's big.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want to move on to colon, right?
Yeah, I had colon also.
Yeah.
Colon was very similar to the intestines
Yeah.
in its symptoms. Let's see. Yeah, so again, trauma can have a profound effect on colon health, as trauma has had a profound effect on all of these.
Mm-hmm.
But the large intestine is affected by relationships and our feelings. It can be aggravated by failure to digest things that no longer serve us.
Mm-hmm.
Individuals with colon health issues are usually resistant to change. Sometimes spiritual concerns around colon health can stem from a feeling of disconnection, like I said, for the intestines as a whole, just like with the self, others, or the outside world and the environment. So it can result in feeling stagnated and trying to hold on to connections, even when those connections are unhealthy or even detrimental.
I just think about all this stuff and I'm like, why do we resist the flow so much? We're so in our human that we get so disconnected from like our gut instincts and our intuition and whatever you want to call it, right? Like whatever resonates with you, gut instinct or intuition or like what, like we just get so in what we think
Well, I
and
think
not.
there's just such a big impression from society too
I
that this
know.
is the plan. This
Mm-hmm.
is the steps.
This is what you do.
This is the scale for everybody. You know, you do this step and this step and this step and this step, and that is it.
And it's funny because even for us in this space, I feel like, well, we deviated or I deviated from the path, right? Like went to business school, worked for a corporate America job, and then deviated from the path and came and ran my own business. But even within the health realm, it's like it looks like this to run your business, right? Like it looks like this. You see one-on-one clients, maybe you have a course, whatever, but like this is what it looks like. And I just feel like that's all of society. Like this is what this looks like. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to. Why?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get a traditional college degree, and I feel like a
You
lot of
think I use
people,
mine?
yeah, but to not our generation, but like our parents' generation, not my parents, because they never pushed me to do that,
Yeah.
but it's just like very much like, and like grandparents' generation, it was like, you're not good enough without a
Mm-hmm.
college degree. And that's very much the mentality that I experience from that generation.
Which is not surprising given like we were all going to college. But it's because, right, my mom got her college paid for by a job. She was an assistant during the day and she went to school at night. And because, it was such the struggle through it, and because they had the opportunity to send us to college, she was like, I don't care what you want to do with your life, but like you'll go and take some business classes at least and then like
Mm-hmm.
start your own business. And like I understand from her because it was such a struggle and she had to do it on her own and she had no help and support. The fact that they could help and support us, like it comes
Yeah.
from that place.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if I didn't want to, that would have been toxic to me, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it would have been very hard to be like, this isn't what I want to do. Like, this
Yeah.
isn't what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it ended up being fine when my dad fought it because he had a lot of blue collar friends that did phenomenally in their lives. Like one of his best friends owns an auto body shop, stuff like that. And he's like, but what about them? Right? Like, why couldn't they go to a trade school? He's like, I don't care what they do as long as they're doing something to pursue some sort of job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
But
think trade schools are awesome, or
phenomenal.
like
Yeah.
technical schools, or
Yeah.
even just
100%.
apprenticing under somebody. Like,
Exactly. That's what his best friend ended up doing. But he was like, I just want them to go pursue something. He's like, I don't
yeah,
care what they do as long as you're not sitting on the couch. Like, just go pursue
yeah.
out
I
there.
think
But
obviously college degrees for certain subjects are amazing. Like you need them clearly for
yeah.
certain subjects. And for certain jobs, that's just what they're going to require. So, but I think for some things, like the amount of just like what seems to me is just like mind numbing information. Like you spend like 2 years doing like,
I had to take an art history class.
yeah,
Tell
all
me
of
what I
these
remember about art
classes and
history.
things that don't even tie into what you're wanting to do, but you still have to pay for them and spend, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah. And like I get the validity behind it because like you're supposed to like I had to pursue things that, just made me more creative in other senses and it just like put my mind in different buckets than where it was going.
mm-hmm,
But at the same time, like literally ask me what I know about art history. I get a couple questions right on Jeopardy every now and then because I remember a couple things, but that's about all it's got.
yeah.
I appreciated it a little bit more when I went to Italy, all the art there, but like that's literally all you got from me. Like it didn't
Mm-hmm.
change my life. I also remember because I got a friggin' B minus in art history. So I was pretty mad it brought down my GPA.
Yeah.
But like I also think there's validity in like like we said, pursuing like what you want to pursue, because I went into college thinking I wanted to be a nutrition major or a math major because I love math. I was like, I want to be a nutrition major. Like, I like how the body works, all this stuff. And then and my mom was like relatively into nutrition. Like, she thought gluten was the devil way back when, and GMOs. And she was right about most of that stuff. But then I got to college and I took my nutrition 101 class, and it was literally just helping us calculate macros. Like, that was quite literally all we learned. You were calculating macros for helping someone lose this X number of pounds. And I was like, wow, if this is what nutrition is, like, I don't want to do it. Right? We're not talking about quality of food, which is so funny that me as a little 18-year-old, like that was what I was like, no, we should talk about like the qualities of food, right? Like we should talk about like the certain types of food. All protein's not created equal. This protein bar is not the same as like meat. But that wasn't what they were going to teach us. That wasn't what they were ever going to teach us. But if I just pursued what I was interested in, it would have been nutrition, but it didn't look like that. That type of nutrition wasn't what I was interested in.
Exactly.
Which,
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
I want to talk about one more thing. So we talked about the lymph, but we didn't talk about the skin. Do you have anything on the skin?
I don't think so.
And then, so I have the skin in the interstitium. I literally don't even think I knew what interstitium was before this course. It's just like the connective tissue between like your organs and like cells and structures of your body. So I'll put them together, even though they're not really together. So interstitium, like blocked, stuck, withdrawn. It's relatively similar to lymph in terms of like the emotions: worthless, disconnected, detached, confused, and sluggish. But I want to talk about skin because people always have, not always, a lot of people have skin issues. It's pretty common. The main emotions with it is unprotected, threatened, insecure, irritated, and vulnerable. It also has a lot to do with being seen. Like, where are you preventing yourself from being seen? I mean, that has to do with your insecurity and your vulnerability too, but like, where in your life do you not want to be seen? Because it'll manifest as a skin issue if you're like afraid of showing yourself. That's all I got there. I think I have the heart too, but that's what you would expect, right? Lack of joy, heartache, lonely, unforgiving, victimized, disappointed, guilt, betrayed. And that's mostly what I have. Do you have anything else that you want to touch upon? I know you definitely have more, but like, are there any that like?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't want to say niche, but they're not like
no, yeah, we're trying
and
to
also
hit the top
like,
ones.
You gotta go pretty soon. So
I do. But yeah, we were just trying to hit the top main ones that like you guys might be dealing with, because there are always going to be niche things.
Yeah.
We got lots of organs, we got lots of glands.
And if you guys resonated with like more than one, which is very, very common.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can self-diagnose all day, but as we always say, work with a practitioner. Like both of us have the tools to support that, like pinpoint which one is the most prevalent at this time, like which one you should work on first. And like you said, it comes in layers. Like you were saying with the MBSR, it's going to come up as this that needs to be cleared now. And then, you move on from there. So yeah, if you resonated with more than one and you want to fix it, go find a practitioner that will help you with that.
Yeah. And like we always say, every single ailment, whatever it is, like there are emotional and physical aspects of it. Right? Like parasite cleansing was instrumental for me, but so was addressing my emotional trauma.
Yeah.
So like you got to do both. We got to like, thyroid, you're going to have to be seen. You're going to have to be heard more. You're going to have to stop that silencing, but you might also need some castor packs on your thyroid, right? Like there's going to be the ebb and the flow. There's going to be both sides of it. And so that's exactly why you work with someone, because someone that can support you with both aspects.
Yeah.
Releasing emotions and addressing the physical health. I mean, there are people out there that are firm believers that it's only emotional, and that's fine. But I've found the beauty in both. I think everyone's entitled to their own opinions.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why I went to the school that I went to, because it wasn't just one thing or the other. Like they give you the whole picture, like you combine it all together. And that's how I address it with all of my clients. It's not just nutrition. It's not just emotions. It's the yin and the yang that go together.
And so with that, we talked about obviously like, right, I deal with a lot of gut people and a lot of liver people. We talked about some of the brief overviews that it could be in terms of your gut, in terms of your liver. And I know, like I said, we ran out of time, but we want to talk about what goes into emotionally your hormones being imbalanced, which I'm so excited to talk about next time because now I'm pitching us for this next time because we can't wait to talk about it.
Okay.
Because people don't think about your hormones. Oh, how do your hormones have emotional? So much. So
Very,
much.
very emotionally connected. I would
It's
say more
all.
so than nutritionally, to be honest.
That's what I say about the gut. Not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
Like it's not the foods that are going into your gut that are impacting you. It's like the trauma. So
Hmm.
okay, cool. So tell people
Anyway,
where they can find you.
you can find me at Emily Joy Wellness, Instagram, TikTok, website. What about you?
At the THE Rooted in Health. And if you like this podcast, we would love it if you shared with your friends, your family, anyone, left a rating and review, subscribed, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. We will catch you in the next episode.